A Midair kills one, 3 miraculously survive, plus a busy weekend for investigators as several small planes crash on Labor Day weekend. Let's go over what we know on this episode of Taking Off. Hi, I'm Dan Milliken, and I'm out visiting family. The Labor Day weekend has brought out the pilots, but unfortunately has also brought out some crashes. The one everyone's wondering about is the Midair on final at Fort Morgan, Colorado, and we'll get to that shortly. But first, a decathlon went down in the Monterey area of Central California. The 1999 small 2-seater airplane is popular with pilots. In addition to some flight training, the decathlon is sturdy, fuel injected, and can do some aerobatics. It's perfect for pilots looking for some fun in the sky. And on Sunday, August 31st, the pilot and the passenger departed Salinas Municipal for a sightseeing flight. The plane went down in a very rural area. Fortunately, the pilot and passenger were able to walk away from the crash and call for help. The California Highway Patrol air assets were able to locate them, and then a CAL FIRE helicopter was able to hoist them up and extract them from the very remote area. The Monterey County Sheriff's Department reported that the pilot said he noticed fuel leaking shortly before crashing. And I'm so glad this one ends with 2 people walking away. Sadly, the same can't be said on the Utah crash of a Piper Arrow in Cottonwood Heights. An engaged couple was in the middle of a save-the-date photo shoot in the canyon's beautiful wildflowers when they saw the Piper. They said they couldn't hear the engine and that he was gliding. And then he tried to pull up. He went behind the trees and just a big cloud of dust. They ran to the plane to assist, and one person was severely injured and in shock. They used a belt as a tourniquet to stop bleeding on a leg injury, and the other was stuck in the wreckage and didn't make it. The 1975 Piper Arrow is a small 4-seat airplane with retractable gear with a fuel-injected IO360 engine, and this plane was registered out of Maryland. The crash site is located pretty close to a ski area. And looking at the map of the area, it's just to the east of the town of Alta. Elevation there is 8,500 feet. This area is surrounded by mountain peaks. And we don't know yet what the flight plan was or if the pilot had any mountain flying experience. I'm sure investigators will be looking at density altitude in addition to possible engine failure or fuel exhaustion, starvation based on the witness statement of no engine sound. And we're hoping the person in critical condition has a full recovery. In Montana, on August 31st, a biplane crashed with 2 people on board at the Wings and Wheels fly-in at the Red Lodge Airport. There were 2 people on board and both suffered injuries, but they are stable. And according to the fire department, the N3N biplane was attempting to land on the runway and it hit a power line, crashing 200 or 300 yards short of the runway and close to a resident's backyard. Now, some have called the airplane a Stearman, but it's an N3N, and this was a Navy trainer created by the Navy themselves and manufactured by the Navy when they had an abundance of aluminum. And I did an episode for a show on Arrowverse about the N3N with Chad Ezel, who owned one. And here's a clip from that about that particular model of airplane.
There was one plane that the Department of the Navy built themselves, without a contractor. Another biplane, the N3N trainer.
N3N was called the Yellow Peril. Back in the 30s, the Navy had been building dirigibles, blimps, and they had loads of aluminum extrusion. And the war was creeping up on talk, and they say, we need a trainer. And we've got all of this aluminum extrusion. We need to build some sort of a trainer. So they put their engineers and they started developing, and they came up with the N3N, and then they developed the N3N-3, which is what this is, which is what they produced the majority. I think they produced over 600 airplanes.
Make sure you check out Arrowverse.com. I've got a link in the description. They're great. All right, let's turn to the Midair at Fort Morgan, Colorado, August 31st. Approximately 10:40 a.m., a Cessna 172 and an extra 300 collided. Both planes had 2 people on board. One has died, another taken to the hospital. The other 2 had minor injuries. In any midair, it's a miracle that anyone can survive. Here's what we know. The airport is untowered. It's pilot controlled. It means that the pilots talk on a common frequency for the airport to announce position and intentions. Radios aren't required. Of course, it's always wise. Pilots are to see and avoid other air traffic. The runway is 1432, the same as my home airport where I fly my Cessna 210 Lola, and this will be relevant in a moment. ADS-B data shows the extra 300 was in a left base turning final for runway 14, and the Cessna was already on final for 14. Looking at the ADS-B for the extra, it departed runway 14. And for those that don't know, the extra 300 is the standard for aerobatic airplanes. It's fast, highly maneuverable. You see them in all the air shows. But by the data here, it departed 14, headed out to the west before pretty quickly coming back to the airport, slowing way down over the airport and pretty high, and then entered the downwind pattern around 120 knots. The Cessna was a 1975 172 Mike model. It had departed Rocky Mountain Metro northwest of Denver, and by the ADS-B data on this flight, the pattern looks like an instrument training flight to me. You can see the turn up here is where the initial approach fix is for the GPS RNAV 14 approach. In this situation, you would have an instructor or safety pilot, and since the weather is clear, the pilot practicing the approach would be wearing a view limiting device, and the other pilot would serve as the lookout. The airplanes collided, with some reports saying they became entangled in the air, and they hit and a fire ensued. Again, 1 fatality, and somehow 3 survived. Both airplanes completely destroyed. And when I talk about the instrument flight, we don't know for sure that that's what the 172 was doing. We'll need to wait for the report on that. At the time of this report, we don't have any record yet of the radio communications. Standard procedure would be for the extra to announce the positions in the pattern, for instance, in the left downwind for runway 14, and the Cessna would announce X miles to the north on the practice RNAV for runway 14. And we don't know yet what was said. Regardless, it's up to the pilots to see and avoid each other. You've got to keep your head out on a swivel, looking all the time. If someone's on final approach practicing, the downwind traffic might extend their downwind to turn behind the traffic that's on final. Bottom line, you have to keep that head on a swivel. You have to keep looking, eyes out. And when coming back from the big air show at Oshkosh in my 210, coming into my home airfield, I was going to land runway 14. I was approaching from the southwest, and the airport is a right pattern for 14, so I announced in the right downwind for 14. The airport is located under the Bravo shelf of DFW, so ADS-B out is required in that airspace. But you can't count on that. And a quick glance at my ADS-B in showed that there was no traffic. The radio was quiet except for my callouts. I announced turning right base for runway 14. I called turning final and gave another look out the window just to make sure, and there it was, a Cessna 150 a few hundred feet from me bearing down. I bailed down into the right and did a circle, announcing what I was doing, what was going on the common frequency, and watched as the 150 continued to land. Long story short, we did a talk on the ground. His alternator wasn't working. He had drained his battery, so he had no radio or transponder, and he was afraid his engine would quit, so he beelined for the airport. Okay, so my point, it's a reminder you can't rely on ADS-B for traffic alerts, but you have to keep your eyes outside. There's way too many reports on this Labor Day weekend. If you're going to go fly, please be safe out there. And I want to thank my sponsors for supporting this channel so we can bring you these reports, like Clemens Insurance. Go to clemensinsurance.net. Jerry there saved me over $1,000 when I switched my airplane insurance over to him, and he handles all sorts of insurance. Also, Marshall Protective Services, mpsprotects.com. And if you want to see another report we've done recently, click on the video box here. And remember, superior judgment trumps superior skill Please be safe out there. Take care.